the Ormond Bloom decides to tackle Boylan as he leaves. But no, he bears no hate for him as easy stopped the sea. Then the nameless debt collector tells us how in Kiernan's pub the citizen flings the biscuit tin, but Bloom ascends above.
So Curraghy Fáilte ar this Riv Uachtarán na hÉireann chun láirt live ar an ócáid speisialta. So Shuíomh an Tuachtarán Micheál D. O'Higgins.
A gúine cór. An gédal sias is gúsáhistam, Fíorcín Fáilte ar Bhíleach Mahan Hain sa san ma bhein céile sa féin. Agus is ínta camráda go bhfuil an chuid is módas na duine tá glíon trámóna iad san a bhfuil play acha le cuasaí lábhar. I must say what a great, as I have just said, may I welcome all of you to this afternoon to Áras and Uachtarán as we commence our garden party season. And I'll just say how appropriate it is that so many of our guests this afternoon are those who work with books and those who are responsible for so much beauty in intellectual and imaginative kind for so many generations by working in our libraries. It is a great, great contribution to citizenship. Bloomsday has a personal dimension for Sabina and I, and particularly for Sabina, because it calls in a particular way the special contribution of Deirdre O'Connor to Irish experience of European and modern theatre. The 16th was her birthday, and Deirdre would have celebrated her 85th birthday this week. As founder of the Focus Theatre, Deirdre made an extraordinary contribution, playing a crucial role in the arts and cultural life of this country. And I'm very pleased that both members of her family and members of the Kelly family, and indeed so many people associated with the Focus Theatre, are able to be with us this afternoon. I do think as well, and thinking of Bloomsday, that I think that there has been a very welcome interest in the circumstances of James Joyce and Nora and their family, and in other words, that inescapable human context that made the publication of one of the world's greatest books possible. The first recorded celebration of Bloomsday began just 2 years after the novel's publication, and details are sketchy, but Harriet Shaw Weaver, Joyce's long-term patron, wrote a letter to James Joyce informing him that a group of people who observed what they called Bloomsday, the 16th of June, had gathered in Dublin. Today, La Bloom, Bloomsday, the day immortalised in James Joyce's 1922 novel Ulysses, and named after Leopold Bloom, day that immortalises the 16th of June when James Joyce and Nora Botkin first walked out. I think that is one of the great benefits of the recent scholarship, is that it has restored the integrity of the words and the phrases as they were used in period, including the phrase walked out. I always think about when things become a week or a day or whatever, it's important to recall what the source was. And the source is, of course, an extraordinary book. It cost a lifetime. There was a writer whose work and circumstances produced one of the greatest books of all time, one that drew on migrant consciousness, memory, and transience, and intimacy. So it is James Augustine Luchia Joyce, modernist avant-garde writer, regarded by many, as I've said, as one of the most important writers of the 20th century, but in a way that opinion is less important than the work itself. I do want to pay tribute to John Callow for his beautiful introduction, in fact, of how important the word is, in fact, to Connolly, because I think one has to be faithful. One has to try to give authenticity to the difficulties of the circumstance of writing, as well as to actually take advantage of the painful publication of the book. And we must never forget the human lives that constitute the material that James Joyce wrote of and loved. In a way, I have to say, I have been making reparations during my presidency, and I have been working at something I think that is important to me to say. Frank Crimmins, an Irish diplomat based in Bern, in 1941, the year I was born myself and as James Joyce died, informed the Department of External Affairs in Dublin, where Eamon de Valera was Minister for External Affairs, of James Joyce's death in Zurich on January the 13th, 1941. And the Department Secretary, Joseph Walsh, responded, "Please wire details about Joyce's death. If possible, find out if he died a Catholic. Express sympathy with Mrs. Joyce and explain inability to attend funeral." I think back, when I think of it, it is one of the memories that I will cherish when my own time as President of Ireland comes to an end, that I was the first president to visit James Joyce's grave. And also, after many conversations with Stephen Joyce, we've embarked on a little project that I spoke about last year, and that was to put Luchia's name and a tribute on the granite where Nora and James Joyce were buried. That work has now been completed. Earlier this year, I had the pleasure to unveil a plaque in Galway's Round Cemetery to mark the connection that the grave of Michael Sonny Bodkin holds with James Joyce, Nora Barnacle, and that what I believe myself, that stands there with the greatest of short stories ever written, The Dead. It is one of the greatest short stories of all time by any standard, concluding with those memorable, beautiful lines. Yes, the newspapers were right. Snow was general all over Ireland. It was falling upon the Bog of Allen and further westwards, falling into the waves. It was falling too upon every part of the churchyard where Michael Fury lay buried. It lay drifted on the crosses and headstones, on the spears of the gate, on the thorns. His soul swooned as he heard the snow falling through the universe and falling like the descent of their end upon all the living and the dead. This year is the 110th anniversary of the publication of The Dead within the James Joyce's collection, Dubliners. And I'm delighted that the grandniece of Michael Bodkin, Mary O'Connor, and indeed the person who's written so beautifully of the Galway connection, Ray Burke, are both with us today. In fact, earlier this year, I presented the Presidential Distinguished Service Award here in Uachtaráin to France, to Dr. Fritz Senn of the Zurich James Joyce Foundation, as recognition of his work in the field of arts and culture and his devotion to the study of James Joyce. Fritz is one of the world's foremost authorities, and I think really he was a great friend of James Joyce studies in Zurich, and he cared so lovingly for the grave of James Joyce and Nora Barnacle in Fluntern Cemetery in Zurich. And I'm so pleased, therefore, to be able to say that he was of such assistance when I was starting on the project, a project that was undertaken at the wish of Stephen Joyce, conveyed to me in numerous long conversations before he died, that permission be given by Uachtarán to have an inscription of a flower given to my daughter, really written by James Joyce for Luchia, and that it be executed at Nora and James's grave in Uachtarán. That work has now been completed, and I am glad to be able to say the balance has been redressed because it was funded by the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs. And I also want to thank the Uachtarán authorities and the authorities there for being able to find in the same stone, granite, the stone upon which the tribute to James, where James and Nora's names are. And what Stephen chose for that, he said, was really a poem for my daughter. Frail the white rose and frail are her hands that gave, whose soul is sear and paler than time's one wave. Rose frail and fair, yet frailest a wonder wild, in gentle eyes thou veilest, my blue-veined child. And I think in doing that, a project has been completed. But when we're in those conversations, I think it's very important to realise how important women were in Joyce's consciousness. Again, it is striking, this is what I say, is that he's above all else somebody who struggled with intimacy. When I hear now of those people who suggest that we should go back to old anti-woman prejudices and whatever, of Joyce writing to Nora and saying why he did not pray at his mother May's death, she who had 15 pregnancies, 10 births and so forth. And he says, I saw her as a victim. And let us hope that not in Ireland again we will be looking on women as necessary victims, and that idea and definition of love and intimacy. I think it is incredible too, but Luchia was incredibly important to him. He said, whatever spark or gift I possess has been transmitted to Luchia, and it has kindled a fire in her brain. And indeed, I think in the beautiful, beautiful poem in which he had Luchia illustrate all the capital letters, it shows how much he cared for his daughter. I think that celebrating James Joyce and his work then, including his masterpiece Ulysses, the centenary of which we marked at last year's Bloomsday Garden Party, reminds us of why we must be grateful to independent book publishers who take risks, provide such a vital service to our society by publishing original, thought-provoking work that might not otherwise see the light of day. For it was Sylvia Beach of the first Shakespearean Company, Paris, who in 1922, as James Joyce struggled to find anyone willing to publish Ulysses, when no English or American publisher would touch his manuscript, had the wisdom and courage to see its worth, and took a significant gamble by bringing the now world-renowned Ulysses to publication under the imprint of Shakespearean Company. I think that indicates a virtuosity of the intellect and a free-spiritedness that is so important in publication. You will have read in the papers, I think, recollections which are humorous but sad in their own way of the Bloomsday celebration in Ireland in 1954, on the 50th anniversary, when Patrick Kavanagh, Flanny Brown, John Ryan and a number of others visited the Sandy Cove Martello Tower and went on to Davy Byrne's on Duke Street, where Bloom eats a gorgonzola sandwich with a glass of Burgundy, reading parts of Ulysses and drinking a great deal as they went. They had intended to end up in Monto. But although due to I'm afraid, the demand of the excessive drinking, they never quite made it past Davy Byrne's. But I think too, Bloomsday grew in Ireland and beyond, celebrated in the United States in 1962 at the Gotham Book Mart. I think the same day the Martello Tower at Sandycove was opened to the public as the James Joyce Tower Museum, with Sylvia Beach at the opening ceremony. By the late 1980s, Bloomsday was an established annual event. In 1994, the first Bloomsday Festival, the week-long celebration we have now, was organised on behalf of the City of Dublin by the James Joyce Centre. I think it has been suggested that Ulysses is one of the most borrowed books from public libraries around the world. Today is therefore such an apposite day to celebrate the importance of libraries in our lives, and I'm so pleased as President on behalf of Sabina and I that we're welcoming so many people for work in libraries. I've always gone to libraries. When I was 19, I went to the library in Galway, and I tried to borrow Bertrand Russell's Why I'm Not a Christian, and a very kindly woman said to me, I can't give it to you. And I said, why not? And she said, it wouldn't be good for you. Now, I'll turn in a moment to the whole paper. But I sometimes think as well that as I was preparing today's speeches, I am concerned for the maintenance. I always see a book, like, for example, the book I referred to earlier. I always James Joyce and his Galway connection. Is the making of a book. I have admired books, the handling of books, and the stitches and the quality of the paper. And I have advised people as they're coming to my age, cream paper with black full print face is so much easier to read and so forth. But I'm concerned for the future of the book. So many of my friends, like myself, who are surrounded by books. In fact, actually looking, what are we to do with them? It is our friends, the books, who have been the friends all our lives, must go before us, must die before us. And the most people will say, we're going to put them safe, and they will be able to be found because we will have digitized everything. As if that was the way you got a book. So I am in favor of books being respected. I'm in favor of the physical book. I'm in favor of buildings that can hold books, of books that can be handled, and books that are not being in the dark, and books that are not to be shunted somewhere where they will be inaccessible. Because you have to make too many decisions. To why did you want it? To go to the trouble of looking for it, and then wait for it to come, and then be grateful for it, and you've forgotten where it has been. That tactile sense. I actually think there is a strong case to be made for asking really what is to be the realm of books into the future. I have friends of mine who have offered thousands of books to people and said, we don't take them anymore. Everything is digitized now. Now, I'm not a Luddite or anything like that. I simply say, I think that to be able to handle a book is important. In the same way as those voices, be it kind or advisory or encouraging, of all those who work in our libraries, to be able to have direct communication. That is incredibly important. And I thank all of you who work in libraries for having that direct connection with people of all ages. Libraries are the oxygen, as John said, of public life. And the books in our libraries offer us information and ideas, but they also stimulate us to pursue more knowledge and form new ideas of our own. For myself, in the larger institutions when I was in the United States and looking through libraries, I have found some of the more important books for myself serendipitously as one walked through the lines. And suddenly a book, you saw it. And in Thomas Merton's sense, it seemed as if it chose you. Libraries are central to the pursuit of reading. And importantly as well, they give access not only to the limitations of our own world and sensibilities, but to the world of the imagination. I'm so delighted to hear this reference to James Connolly. It is very, very interesting how well written and how well read and widely all of the people who took part in the revolutionary period were. The author best known among all of the people at that time in Connolly's Dublin was Ibsen. And when somebody put on a public lecture on Ibsen, they all attended, including everyone from Shaw to Connolly and others. Ideas and books and words are incredibly important. And in a way, aren't we lucky that we have the libraries, one of those places of public gathering that has been spared the grossest commodification, where you don't go in to be lured to spend money or to purchase anything or to have anything that has been specially reduced. You have simply been there to spend time. Intrinsic to libraries, as I have said, are all those library staff. And I have to say, the idea that somebody suggests that there is anything Irish, essentially Irish or authentically Irish, about bullying your way in front of or into a library, intimidating library staff, if in fact putting library staff under siege, forcing libraries to be temporarily closed, books being torn up by those who hide behind the mask of protester. They must be called what they are, vigilantes, attempting to impose a censorship based on ignorance and exclusion. I think in one of the more recent publications on James Joyce's work is that of Luke Gibbons, who sends his regards. He's reading a paper in Glasgow. And in it he discusses something very interesting, I think, and it is the concept that is there at the centre of the dead, of the meal that is being shared, that this is an expression of hospitality. And really that in the discussion where you have of Nora's former young lover, he is, as it were, the guest who hadn't been included, and he has to break into the narrative, and this leads to the very beautiful consideration, and Gabriel has to realise that he now is part of the company as well, and that he must go west. But that tradition of hospitality, in my times going around in different poor parts of the world and migrant camps in Africa and South America, the thing that impressed me most, they would offer you what they had. You didn't ask questions, and you sat and shared with what people had. That is what Irishness is. And those people who suggest that exclusion is in any sense anything other than a travesty, not just of what Irishness is, but a travesty of what humanity is. And that is why it must be confronted for the shameful, not condoned by ignorance, but the ugliness that is there in it all. I do think Socrates said that libraries are the delivery room for the birth of ideas, encouraging young and old to be inquisitive about the world in which we live, about how our past is part of what has shaped our present, and how we might use our knowledge and talents, indeed, as John was saying, to say, and that is, when you're looking at discourses as they happen in Ulysses, such as in the citizen scene and so forth, where is the likely murmur for the future yet to be born to come from? And that is what is so very important. We're not stuck with what contradicts us, what contradicts our humanity. We are not stuck with the inevitability of war. We're not stuck with the inability to respect nature. We're not stuck with the inability to see others of difference as threatening to us in any way. Another world, and that is of course where the writing and the incredible writing of people like Joyce, it is only now so long afterwards. There is, as I said, the central pursuit of intimacy and the love that is intimacy. And those letters between Nora, that letter I quoted, Joyce after the death of his mother May, was a letter to Nora. Protecting libraries, library staff supporting them from imitation, from protest by FARÓ. I don't use that phrase, by groups, ignorant vigilante groups, and ensuring that they do not fall foul to any censorship is in fact, I know that most of us will support. But today, we're celebrating in a way. Isn't it great that we are able to honour a great artist, a great migrant, and somebody, who saw that the poetic instinct to see alternative futures is so much better than the depressed notion of things cannot change. I want to take the opportunity very much of thanking Seán Rocks for looking after us today and doing so well. I want to thank all of the artists who will be entertaining you and continuing to do so. David O'Connor on piano, Piper Anya Harrington, the St. Lawrence O'Toole pipe band with their wonderful history, Colm O'Harragon's group, the Atkinson family, the Frankie MacDonald band, FARÓ, Simon Morgan and Vincent Lynch, Andrew Basquille and Eugene Murphy, the Honeydews. And I just want again to say, thank John Callow for just giving such powerful witness as he does, that the work of the mind and the use of words and so forth, there in the trade union movement, putting together this work, the fullness of life. He honours us by coming here today, and as we can say, as we all know, now the word is beginning to spread. The only safety for workers is by joining the trade union. Sabina, and I hope I'm so pleased that you're all able to be here. This Áras and Uachtarán since 1938 has been the home of all presidents. And I think it's so much appropriate that those of you who work in the task of citizenship feel welcome here. It is your house after all. And Sabina and I hope that you enjoy this Bloomsday here with us. I wish you Uachtaráin Duntaki. It is also, of course, today Father's Day. So may I wish all happy fathers a very happy Father's Day. I should say as well that there's one person I want to welcome in particular. Sabina is our grandson, Finn Abergan, who is celebrating his first James Joyce Day. Thank you so much. Enjoy the day.